Huh?
We're making money. We're making money. They're not going to stop us. Sorry. I don't know what you want me to say. Oh, oh, wrong one.
Oh my days. Hey, why are we live? Huh? Yeah, sure.
Yes. We're up on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. We're already here. Who knew? Be very aware of. Freshly pressed.
ARM. Invest in your tomorrow.
Smooth 98.1. Here we are. It is gone past 7:30, which means Freshly Pressed is underway here on your Love Music Love Life station. I'm Shokla Martins, and joining me in the studio, two analysts in for a Tuesday morning. Of course, you know the voice of Uade. Good morning.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Shopwell. Great to be here.
I don't know what's going on. He seems to just be in a holiday mood. Very, very happy. Got his tropical shirt on. It's all good. And joining us for a Tuesday morning, Mr. C. How wonderful to see your face. How are you?
Good morning, Shopper. Good morning, Wadi. Good morning, Lagos.
Uh,
Morning, Mr. C.
It's going to be an interesting one. And of course, I've got you wherever in the world you're listening to me from or watching. You can always go up on youtube.com/ smooth 981 FM Lagos. We started a couple of minutes before the show came on air, so who knows what you got to see behind the scenes. And you can also leave your comments on the live stream so that we can get your thoughts, your observations, your questions on the topics that we're going to be discussing today. And send WhatsApp messages into 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at us. We are at Smooth981FM on Twitter, and I'll be reading out your tweets if you tag us in those tweets. Okay, let's get started. So, we're going to take this first bit of news in from the Punch newspaper. Defend yourselves from bandits. This call is coming from House of Representatives member Dachung Bagos, who's representing Just South, Just East federal constituency, and this is in response to the killing of 7 of his constituents by suspected Fulani bandits when they attacked a village in Just South local government of Plateau State on Sunday night. And I'm going to quote him here. He said, "Everybody has the right to defend himself. I want to urge my constituents to defend themselves. Enough is enough. Enough of these barbaric and dastardly killings." He also went on to say that he had signed for the impeachment of President Buhari because, and once again I quote, "We need someone that will address the issues of insecurity. My people are being killed on a daily basis. This is condemnable and unacceptable." Wadi, I come to you for your response to his response.
Well, first and foremost, my condolences to the families of those who were killed, whether by bandits or terrorists or whatever you call them. But it just goes to show you the state of the nation. The level of insecurity is at an alarming rate. People are killed every day all over Nigeria, and nobody seems to be doing anything.
Look, Wadi, I had to look at the news today and I quickly shut my
Yeah,
laptop.
if you look at the first 3 or 4 stories, it's all about terrorism and
And by the
banditry.
way, these are the stories that made you onto Firstly Press.
And you
Let's
can
not
imagine
talk about
what's going on.
the
So
baby that was amputated. No.
so it's amazing that the president has actually signed off. Technically, he's just coming into the office as if he does come into the office, and he does nothing. What we get is Garba Shehu writing another long statement of how he's upset, and really nothing is being done, and nothing has been done. It seems like the security forces are overwhelmed by the magnitude in quote of the the killings in Nigeria, or the murders of Nigerians. They are Nigerians, you know. They're human beings. They are Nigerians, and nobody seems to just wants to get them their acts together.
But what is really interesting to me is, the latter one where latter quote I took, where he talked about signing for the impeachment of the president, and we'd also
It
heard
takes
from
it takes them 7 years to sign for impeachment of someone who has done nothing over the last 7 years. It's amazing.
mm,
Why? Because everything is getting close to you, and it's getting close to everybody in
this
Nigeria.
There's
Yeah,
is there any
initially,
part of the country
yeah, that's what I'm
that's
saying,
safe
because
right
now
now?
it's gotten close to everybody.
Mm.
Everybody seems to be on their alert. It's been happening for the last 6 7 years and nobody said anything. Initially, oh, it was your brother, oh, it was your sister, and then it became, oh, they were bandits, oh, they were headsmen, oh, then they were bandits, now they're terrorists. And for 7 years, almost 7 years, it's gone on like this. And now, because it's gotten home to the members of the National Assembly, everybody's just woken up 6 months or is it a year to the end of the president's what's it called, and talking about impeachment. The opposition only just realized that he has done nothing, and it's sad.
No,
It's
but
sad
here's
for
the
this country.
thing, not even the opposition who has been beating this gun well because they're the opposition. But you know, hearing from an APC senator saying that most of the lawmakers backed his impeachment is
And
it's
it just it comes back to where we started from. They did just wake up. The Yoruba man will say, they just woke up this morning and realized that for 7 years that the security architecture in Nigeria has been destroyed. People, Nigerians are being killed every day, and nobody seems to care about it. Oh, it wasn't me, and that's the attitude, and it's unfortunate.
well,
Really.
Mr. C, we're not going to step away from attacks or terrorism or anything like that right now because, like what it had already said, these are the stories that we've got to deal with, and or these are the issues that we've got to deal with. From the Punch newspaper, police strategize, NSCDC warns as terrorists infiltrate South. Now, as part of the strategies to prevent these terrorist attacks, the police chiefs in Lagos met yesterday, and this was as the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps warned Nigerians against employing fleeing terrorists. Now, we had heard from the CP of the Police State Command saying that you know they'd received word from the intelligence agencies and that they were prepared to deal with anything that came, any sort of security attack that came to Lagos. Mrs. C, I'd love to get your take on this bit of news.
Okay, thank you, Shokman. So, just like what they said during the first story, it appears that everyone just is now waking up to realities we've already known, we've already understood. How can the authorities be telling us now they believe now that suspected members of ISWAP and Boko Haram are in the south? We've known this for at least the past 2 to 3 years.
But hold on, though, this is not the first time they're telling us this.
Maybe this is the first time they are meeting to
So-
tell us or to
so what's
put a
the-
strategy in place.
So what's the emphasis now? According to them, that they arrested a suspected member of Boko Haram in Ogun State in the past few days. And then the NSCDC then says we should be careful not to employ fleeing terrorists. Excuse me. How are you, Wade or I, supposed to know who is a fleeing member of a terrorist group? How? If you go to your neighborhood police station where there's no central record of anything, how are you supposed to determine whether Owade here is a member of Boko Haram or Israel? In the absence of information, say, from the NSA. Anyway, moving beyond that, there have been reports suggesting that there might be attacks in the southwest, specifically Lagos and Ogun states. Maybe the arrest of this individual has followed or delayed any attack in Ogun State. Subsequently, the security chiefs in Lagos State met, and they continue to meet, and they're trying to roll out strategies to ensure that there is no attack in Lagos State.
Now, Mrs. E, the question I would ask is, in your opinion, what's the difference between Lagos and the rest of the country? Because we have also seen attacks happen in which we have been told of intelligence reports happening beforehand, but then we now see the attacks happening. We're hearing that for this leaked memo from the NSCDC indicating that these terrorists have amassed dangerous weapons for massive attacks. You know, so.
Okay.
What is going to stop Lagos from becoming like the other areas that have been attacked?
Okay, so the difference is this. Lagos is a former political capital and still remains the economic capital. Lagos is literally or arguably the first gateway of any foreigner into Nigeria. Yes, we have other international airports in Abuja, in Kaduna, in Kano, in Sokoto, but literally, or Port Harcourt, but literally about, I would dare say, 70 to 80% of the foreigners who come into Nigeria, of any trip into Nigeria, terminates in Lagos. Now, you cannot afford to have an attack of the magnitude of any of the attacks in the northeast in Lagos. Do not forget, we have almost all your diplomatic consulates in Lagos. You have your foreign business community in Lagos. Lagos cannot afford an attack like any of the attacks going on in the northeast or in the northwest. And that is why you see that, unlike previous incidents where intelligence reports were received well before the attacks and nothing appeared to have happened even after the attacks, Lagos is being proactive because already our economy is quite fragile. The dollar is doing what, 718, 720? 718, 720 naira to a dollar, right?
Mm.
Foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment is plumbing new lows every week. The dollar is simply scarce to find, and importers are willing to pay any amount to get the greenback. And with all of this going on, there's an ASU strike still going on. Labour is considering joining them full time. You have all the issues. There's uncertainty as to the petrol price, all these uncertainties. Then you then have an attack.
I don't know, Mrs. E. I whilst theoretically what you say makes sense, but I'm also looking at attacks in Kaduna where we would have thought that we wouldn't have attacks, considering the fact we have so many military establishments there, attacks on presidential guards, where we would think, okay, if they're responsible for protecting Mr. President, why can we afford to see attacks on those personnel? Many attacks that we didn't think would happen, attacks on a church in the southwest, many attacks that we didn't think would happen and we didn't even could even conceive of have happened.
So, Shokwe, think like if we were to step out for a second and think like terrorists, you scale your attacks, you face them. Now, the ultimate phase, the ultimate embarrassment, they've attacked Abuja. The authorities simply do not appear to know what they're doing. Now, hit the economic capital. The economy that's already on its knees will simply collapse.
If I'm thinking like a terrorist,
Think Independence Day. Imagine critical infrastructure.
Most of your ports are in Lagos.
No.
Your economic hub is in Lagos.
Shokwe,
So if
Shokwe.
you shut Lagos down, then
which
we just shut Nigeria
makes it
down.
the jewel of the crown
And I
for
agree.
terrorists to attack.
And I agree.
But-
And that's why you must be extremely careful in Lagos. You must be proactive in Lagos. Gosh, can we
As
move
citizens, you must
as
be
everybody?
okay. All right, interesting. Yes, we can move on. I see your messages coming in, and I will be reading them out from across the different platforms. Let me take a look. Let's take a look at this next story, and then we'll take some messages and go on a break. So very quickly, economic sabotage this time. Haha, Wadi, isn't this a fun, freshly pressed from the
Really
Vanguard
interesting.
newspaper? 13 naval officers and ratings face general court-martial for connivance and oil theft. Now, according to sources, among those facing the naval court-martial were some officers who connived with people of some oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta, including traditional leaders, to operate suspected illegal refineries with siphoned crude oil. So normally, and this is where you get to have the very interesting off-air conversations with you and Justin, who has a vested interest in these matters. We've heard of what goes on behind the scenes and the large quantities of oil theft to the point of 100% being stolen. Do you think that this is? I mean, what do you make of this bit of news coming out? Do you think the real perpetrators have been caught?
Well, like they said, this exercise started in April, and so this is so in 4 months they've done a lot. A country that for the last 6-7 years has not produced up to its capacity has produced only between 1.3 and 1.6 million barrels. When you have an OPEC quota of 2.1 million barrels a day, and all of a sudden in August, they're going to arraign 13 officers and ratings. Who are these officers? Tell us who they are. Do you understand? If you are arraigning them, tell us who they are. What the crime is, crude oil theft. But this is laughable because it's been going on. People know it's been going on. We were saying something yesterday. I was somewhere yesterday, and in a country where a whole ship will get missing, a crude oil ship gets missing, and nobody can find it, and then all of a sudden 13 13 officers and
It's
ratings.
quite interesting that when you see or when you really think about the extent and the extent and the reach of the tentacles of all of this, that it's ratings that are being
well, there are some
because of,
officers among
and
them.
some officers, but we don't really know.
Nobody's telling us
We don't
the
really
ranks
know.
of the officers.
Exactly.
Are they the high level ones or are they the top officers of the Navy?
What would
Well,
you guess?
you have to put something together, and that's what for me this is. Just put a what do you call it, a mock trial, yeah, a mock trial together, so that you can say, oh, we're working hard. We haven't produced up to our capacity in the last 6 years. And it's
Just to
unfortunate.
piggyback very quickly, all the major international oil companies are selling their onshore
Sure.
and shallow water operations. Why? Because whatever nonsense the Navy is doing in the Niger Delta is not working, and they cannot simply afford to continue to lose production to
And lose money.
unknown oil thieves, because we're now in the season of unknown everything.
All right, we've got messages. Tonya from Igodo says, I don't think it's fair to single out Lagos as a place that cannot afford an attack on the scale of the ones in the north. No place can afford wanton destruction of lives and property. That comment belittles the lives and properties of locations outside of Lagos, and I think it's insensitive. Mr. C, I'll give you a chance to just quickly
Okay,
reply.
so the comment was specific because you asked why Lagos State should not be affected by the attacks. And so I did not set out to demean or dehumanize any other part of the country. My answer was specific to the question that was raised.
Hmm.
And no part of Nigeria, for the record, deserves to be attacked.
You cannot place a quantity on the value of a human life. It's priceless. And I hope that if you've been listening to Freshly Pressed of editions of previous past and Mr. C's analysis of times past, you would know that that is his firm and unshakable stance. From Omoni, this message comes in. The party in power has failed to implement the changes it promised Nigerians in 2014 and does not deserve to continue in power. Well, I hope the youth and their parents will come out to vote in 2023. Whilst Fabian from Ekbe says one wishes that the senators could also be impeached. Why the sudden show of concern for the safety of Nigerians by our security? We have been and are still on our own. No one is to be trusted, not even our security. This one from Dami says, it's wild that people who should be working hard to secure everyone are the ones telling us that we're on our own. Whilst Tony from Ikeja says, my advice to Nigerians regarding insecurity, economy, and the seeming inability of the authorities to act: know whom you're voting for, Nigerians. Ask questions. If you don't, you're most likely to vote in a treasury power or land grabber. People, vote for those who are coming in to work for you. And messages are still in, but I'll take a break and then sort through them and come back on the other side. We've got more stories. Stick with us.
Or tuned into the Smooth
So,
98.1.
two things here. I forgot to mention it in story one. They need to legalize firearms for Nigerians who are eligible.
You were
Bros,
good. See,
bros.
listen, bros. Eh? You have not legalized firearms. Eh? We were talking last week.
Look, your man stopped it when he entered office.
You have not legalized firearms. You can get firearms. You get the permissions and all. You haven't done that. You know what it takes to register a firearm. And then look at the proliferation of guns in Nigeria. It's not only in the north.
I agree.
You know that in the south, all the so-called guns that they claimed, they are all sitting inside the creeks. Not to talk about the west and the pits that they are all sitting.
So,
Okay, and we are in.
Forget, we can't legalize anything. We haven't even legalized ourselves. We want to legalize guns.
Okay, we're back. Studio. Okay, I'll come in with this message from Tyre, still on our forces and insecurity in Nigeria. Tyre saying, America from far, far away in the abroad took out Al Qaeda leader and Al Qaeda leader residing in Pakistan. No fuss. But our security forces are dragging their legs as if we have an injury, issuing warnings and threats. Okay, he says. And we now move on to our next story. So, taking a look at this one coming in. Taking a look at this one coming in from the Vanguard, bandits block Enugu-P'Harcourt highway, burn army van, abduct scores of passengers. Okay, now this comes in with reports of about 30 heavily armed gunmen abducting the occupants of 3 buses and attacking a team of soldiers drafted to the scene following a distress call. Now, they reportedly set the military van on fire and wounded two soldiers before herding all the occupants of the buses that they had abducted into the bush. Mr. C.
Okay, thank you, Shopper. And first of all, our thoughts go out to the families and loved ones of the passengers of these three buses, about 13 number. And no, the gunmen were
The
13.
gunmen.
So our thoughts go out to the families and loved ones of the abducted passengers, and we sincerely pray and hope that they're all reunited with their families and loved ones. Now, to the story. 30 armed terrorists attacked three buses on a highway. A military team is drafted to the scene, and they overwhelm the military team because the evidence from the story shows that the military vehicle was set on fire, and two of the team members were injured. Now, this is a recurring topic. This is a recurring story. Every day, all over the country, very sadly and very unfortunately, scores and hundreds of Nigerians are kidnapped and forcibly taken into captivity, and their loved ones, their families, their employers are then forced to raise sums of money to secure their release. And occasionally, the ransoms are paid, or the abductees are killed. They're not returned alive. Now, it brings us to the topical question. Should Nigerians be allowed to legally carry firearms? There are arguments for and against this topic. But I dare say that if some of the passengers on those three vehicles had firearms on them, it is very well possible that some of the proposed or intending kidnappers would have been killed or severely injured, and not all of them would have been taken into captivity. Now you have a situation where Nigerians cannot legally.
No, okay, Mr. C, let's stop right there.
Okay.
So, one thing I'm gonna ask you, you're saying that if the you're saying that if the civilians had firearms,
Legally.
so legally, I understand that. Yeah, let's just actually put that out there. Legally, had firearms, that they
Yes.
would have been able to, if not fully, at least partly repel and do some damage to the attackers.
So, yeah. Okay.
And we've just covered the fact that there was military there who have
So,
firearms. So what would civilians do?
So, Shokwe, so here's the thing, right?
That military personnel can't do.
Shokwe, if you are in trouble and you need to pray, you are the only one who can say that prayer better than I would. Now, the military guys, yes, supposedly have better arms, but are they motivated to do the work? Apparently not. If I'm fighting for my life, I'm not going to trust another human being to be more concerned about me staying alive than myself. Give me a fighting chance to preserve my life.
Okay.
We move on. From the Guardian newspaper, confusion as communications ministry rejects federal government's 5% excise duty on sector. Oh, this is such an interesting story. This is
a house in confusion.
This
This
is-
is what happened.
I'm my eyes are wide open just
The
watching the
Minister of
unfolding.
Finance says something, the Minister of Communication comes out and says that they're going to reject
So
it.
let's
It
just give
is-
you the information. So last week, the federal government had disclosed that that telecommunications subscribers would pay a 5% tax on calls, SMSs, and data services. Then we heard from the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Issa Pantami, who yesterday at a forum organized by the Nigeria Office for Developing Indigenous Telecom Sector rejected flat out the planned tax. And I'm going to quote him because so quotable. He said, "I have not been contacted officially. If we have, we will surely state our case. The sector that contributes to the economy should be encouraged. You introduce excise duty to discourage luxury goods like alcohol, but broadband is a necessity. If you look at it carefully, the sector contributes 2% excise duty, 7.5% VAT to the economy, and you want to add more? We must come together and salvage the sector. Only the telecom sector contributed 13%, and you want to add more." Okay, so I mean, he's not wrong here, but also, can he and should he be saying this and rejecting?
Oh, yes,
things
he can say
flat
this.
out?
Yes, he
Okay.
can. Because what should happen before the Minister of Finance goes out to make a public announcement is have a discussion with the Ministry of Communication on what you plan to do. You throw it out in public, and he says nobody contacted him or nobody contacted his ministry. Ministries don't work in isolation because it affects, you see, but this tax affects not just telecommunications, it affects the whole of Nigeria. So when you make a decision and you want, because you want more money, and you look at a sector that is doing well and just decide, oh, throw the taxes at them, then this is what you get, a kickback. Ministries are meant to sit down and look at the implications of a policy across board. Every single ministry should have an input into that. Not just one person coming out and saying, okay, it's 5% we want to add. Today is 5%. The next minister comes is 10%. The next one comes is 15%. And that's how it goes on. We cannot do things in isolation because you say you're the Minister of Finance or you're the Minister of Communication. The effects of a ministry's policy can be far-reaching, even as far as environment. A communication policy can affect the environment, and then people just wake up and say, oh yeah. And I'm happy that he kicked back. Let them go back to their drawing boards and go and sit down with each other and agree. Maybe they would still put a tax, but maybe not 5%. But the telecoms operators have already told us who is going to pay for it. The Nigerians, who are becoming poorer and poorer every day.
So, very quickly, it speaks, there's also an unspoken issue here. Who is coordinating everyone?
That's what I'm saying. It's a house divided.
Because the VP is recuperating from some procedure.
So nobody is saying anything.
The VP is recuperating from medical procedure that was performed on him. The president, I'm not sure if he's aware of what's going on. The chief of staff, I'm not sure he's aware of what's going on. So it's very embarrassing to see two ministers from the same government publicly arguing about a policy decision. And it doesn't inspire any confidence in the foreign public that is watching the developments.
Let me read what the people have to say. Now, this message in from Olu says, all the 5% excise duty is in, no, he says the 5% excise duty is in the Finance Act of 2021. So was Pantami sleeping when that act was passed? Whilst Taya says, following the drama between the ministries don't work in isolation. Have you been to Nigeria? and he says, why are we not looking at the fact that security forces are trained? Please explain to me how citizens who legally get firearms and are not trained can save their lives, asks Ehi. Same question I asked you, Mr. C. Ideally says, as much as I agree with you, Mr. C, I don't believe that Nigeria is mature enough as a country to enforce the misuse of okay. It's not misuse. He very clearly stated, and I remember questioning him on this, and him stating it clearly that he said legally, because there was a point at which we were allowed to get permits and licenses to carry firearms that was paused indefinitely.
Yeah, that was stopped in shortly, sometime in 2015.
It isn't, and has never been restarted. So what he was saying was legally, and also this comment that statements I'm making also goes out to Dakpo Lawal, who sent in a message. Thank you. Now, Adele says, how will the government put control of issuing firearms through licenses? Once again, I honestly don't think we should be pushing this narrative. Although I agree practically on your analysis, but it's scary that anyone would have access to a legal firearm with a fake ID. Okay. And Bosu from Sierra says, no, that regarding that scenario, it will quickly escalate to a Mexico level of cultism and gross misconduct, and that's a realistic future. All right, let's see if we can have a look at this next article coming in from the Daily Post. Fuel scarcity. Federal government speaks on removing subsidy, and what they've said is they've not removed it. We heard from the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timmy Praise Silva, who spoke with newsmen at the Stakeholders Consultation Forum at the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Now, he was reacting to the increase in pump price of petroleum by marketers from 165 naira to, well, it really depends, anywhere from 169 to 218 naira per litre, depending on where you are and what station you are at. Your thoughts on their stance?
Okay, so very quickly, it appears the bridging allowance has been quietly removed, and that has informed the different prices of petrol in different parts of the country. So where it's 218, we're probably talking about the farthermost parts of the country. Now, really and truly, has the subsidy been removed? We have no clue because this government has been less than transparent in its dealings regarding the fuel subsidy and even the amount of petrol consumed on a daily basis. So even the minister is confused. He doesn't know what the position is. And we continue to wait and see whether at some point the real facts will come out.
And to end the show, let me take this message in on YouTube from AJK, who says, Enugu-P'Harcourt Expressway, now this is getting out of hand. Quite a lot of money is being made by these bandits and criminals. Terrorists, let's you also add that one. Imagine that the occupants of these vehicles were armed as well. The coordination in the federal cabinet is so funny. How is such a policy like adding a new tax to calls, data, etc., not even communicated between the ministries involved? Now, wow. And on that note, we end the show. Make sure you continue the conversation with my analyst up on social media. You can find Mrs. C Instagram and Twitter. He is at Monsieur C with 3 E's after the C. And you can find Wade at Wade underscore Ahimi up
Why
on.
Ahimi on this?
Oh man,
You
why
always
shop my
miss
why?
it. Your holiday, you came back from holiday and forgot about it.
I'm sorry. And you can find him on Twitter. That's all, folks. I'll go and repent off air. Thank you. Coming up, 8:15, it will be the grapevine.
Say you should come to Nigeria and you find me